I don't know it because I had to get it out of a Baptist hymnal. But hopefully some of you will know it, and we'll take the lead. Robert will play it through once. And so if you'd all rise, please. The music is in the insert.
Tick, tock, tick, tock. 20, 40, 60, 80, and none of the day remains. How much time is enough time? Think about that. Say with me together. Forever.
Forever.
Eternity. Never ending. Infinite. That is enough time. The gospel that Dan was so strong and concerned with was that which was concerned with life. And that life was through Jesus Christ and the cross. The time span of man and humanity is only this large. We have somewhat of 8,000 years to date, approximately, right now. In that time, the very center of time was based on one thing: the coming of Jesus Christ. Before Jesus, God came into being as man. Time was called BC. After his crucifixion and resurrection, Anthro Donnelly, the day of the Lord. All of time known to humanity is centered on Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. There is no name given under heaven by which a man may be saved. Why? Because God created man. Man had one requirement: to be obedient to God. He disobeyed God in the Garden of Eden, for which God had the plan of redemption in place. The Bible doesn't talk about 1,000 things, 1,000 different ways. The Bible talks about one thing 1,000 different ways. The Bible talks about redemption. And redemption declares ownership. Many years ago, Coca-Cola used to put out bottles, and what they would do to get their bottles back is they would set a price. They would give you a nickel a bottle for every bottle you returned. Coca-Cola owned those bottles. They set a price to pay for those bottles, so that those bottles would be returned to the rightful owner. Man was deceived in the Garden of Eden. Dominion was taken over by Satan. That's the truth. But God set a price: death. By one man, Adam, death came into the world, that by one man the world might be saved: Jesus Christ, the last Adam. How much time is enough time? Eternity is enough time. God loved humanity that much that he bared the whole price, not part of it, all of it. You and I, right now, are grieving because of the separation we feel from one we loved so greatly. But God, when he looked at humanity, knew that because of sin, that they would be separated from him for eternity. For which, that's why Jesus came. Guido shared with us 1st and 2nd Timothy. The very purpose of that book was that Timothy would stand firm on the gospel, that he would fight, and he would let no other doctrine come in. Where was it coming in? It was coming into the church. There were philosophies. There was Gnosticism, idealism, Judaism, every ism you could possibly think of. Because every ism is a substitute for Jesus Christ. There was a tree in the Garden of Eden. It was called the tree of knowledge of both good and evil. My friends, that was religion. Man chose to decide for himself what was good and what was evil because he wanted to be like God. No one can be like God. God makes all the rules, and anyone disobeying it has sinned. Period. But someone went to a tree, one who was perfect, holy, and just. This one was Jesus Christ. All of God's righteousness, all of God's holiness, all of God's perfection fully God, fully man. Philippians 2 says that although Jesus was God, he did not consider equality with God something to be arbitrary or held onto, but he set aside his deity, his privilege to be God, and became man, paying the full price for mankind, so that there's only one way to heaven. The Bible only talks about one thing: redemption. Dan Martin was one who wanted to proclaim that truth. Dan Martin's greatest fight was against false teaching, false doctrine, anything that would be a substitute for the true and one gospel. Christ crucified for sins, resurrected that the payment was made in full, and redemption for life everlasting. You and I both know that Dan right now is sitting in glory with the Lord Jesus Christ. When he entered into glory, we know that the words of Jesus were this: "Well done, good and faithful servant." Because we all could agree that if anyone was sold out for Jesus Christ, it was Dan Martin. When I heard that Dan had only had 2 boxes left in his house to make his move from here to South Jersey, where I know Dan from, the only thing that was brought to my mind was the widow woman who gave all she had, and that Jesus commended that. Dan didn't do things halfway. It was 100% or nothing. He was a man on fire for Jesus Christ. When he came down to us at Grace and had told me he really felt that the Lord wanted him to start a youth group, just prior to it, maybe a few months before, I saw just a couple of teenagers in the congregation. And I said to my wife,